Welcome to the finale of Smallville Season 11 right here at Comicstorian, your home for audio dramas of your favorite comic book storylines, video game narratives, and movie overviews. Smallville Season 11 has officially concluded the Smallville storyline. You see, Smallville Seasons 1 through 10 was on television and quite popular. Smallville Season 11 was a comic series that has spanned 9 volumes, basically building out the world of Superman to be what you would more expect, with everything from Batman to The Flash to Wonder Woman. And today we're going to be concluding the storyline that we have been running for almost 4 months at this point. When we last left off, the crisis on Infinite Earths had begun, and the Monitors had taken their ships and were attacking the world of Smallville. Our heroes built up an army for the final battle, and they dropped Lois and Lex Luthor off on the Monitor's ship in an attempt to basically hack in and change the Monitor's plans. But at the last second, Lex Luthor threw Lois Lane out of the ship to fall down to the Earth below and decided that if the Monitors were going to reboot his world, why couldn't he reshape it to how he sees fit? Lois is plummeting through the sky, falling to the earth, and she looks around at the battle around her. At least it looks like we're winning, she notes, when suddenly a hand snags her and she looks up to see Wonder Woman riding a Pegasus. Far from it, sister, the Amazon tells her as she pulls her onto the horse's back. More ships begin to arrive and the Manhunters disembark, yet these ones are intended to reconfigure and are powered by Blue Bleed. Superboy to all points. They're heading to Smallville. Titans will engage. Superboy calls out from atop a roof, his team of Titans behind him, when suddenly a portal opens up over their heads and members of the Legion of Superheroes stand before them. Easy there. The future no longer rests on your shoulders alone, Brainiac 5 tells him. Superman arrives, shaking the Legionnaires' hands, and Brainiac tells them that they will hold the line with the Titans in Smallville. Titans, together! Superboy calls as his team takes off. Superman snags Lois off of Wonder Woman's steed, telling the Amazon that they will fix her home. Until then, I will fight as though my mother and sisters ride beside me, Wonder Woman calls out, returning to the fight. On the ground, Oliver is fighting alongside Batman and Nightwing. Is this a normal day for you? Oliver asks. I haven't had a normal Friday since I was 11, Batman tells him. Oh my god, you guys love each other! Nightwing screams out in joy, and above them, the pods begin to break free of the Monitor ships, and Martian Manhunter informs the teams that the living beings have entered the fight. Is this where we fall back? Fall back to where? Batman replies as the heroes join together, with Superman dropping Lois onto the rooftop, asking if she planted the virus into Lex's armor as well. Hell yeah, she did, Tess smiles from the watchtower. Inside, Lex suddenly hears his sister's voice over his comms. The Watchtower Network would like to thank you for your service during this crisis. Have a nice day, she tells him, ejecting him from his own battlesuit. Tess? He questions as he hits the floor. On the ground, the heroes have met the Monitors in fierce combat. Lex falls to the floor, but Superman saves him. Leave now, he growls, fighting off another Monitor. For once, Superman, I completely agree. As the Lanterns fight, Saint Walker is attacked by 2 of the Monitors, falling in battle. Aya moves to defend her friend, destroying the area with her green constructs, but as the smoke clears and Saint Walker lays there, they see that he has fallen in battle. The ring slides off of his hand, beginning to search for a new candidate, a new Blue Lantern. Inside the Monitor mothership, the captain notes that they are on the verge of losing this reality, and she nods, ordering the Manhunters to be recalled and to position all ships over Metropolis. The large pod is launched from the mothership, exploding through the atmosphere and heading for the city. Let the Omega Monitor usher them into oblivion. Superman turns, seeing the pod appear in the sky, and Martian Manhunter flies forward, sensing a life form within. Superman and Supergirl streak towards the falling object, impacting against it hard. They push, trying desperately to slow it down, but the pod continues forward, with Jean sending out a signal warning the other heroes of the impending impact of this thing. Do we worry about this jump or the sky falling? Oliver asks Batman, motioning to the Monitor that is standing before them. First world problems. The Monitor launches himself forward while Batman and Green Arrow brace for the attack, but the falling pod suddenly breaks through the sound barrier, vibrations throwing everyone off their feet. Oliver stares in horror as the pod is racing towards the watchtower. Chloe, get out of the damn building! Run! Oliver screams out. Do it, Sullivan! Batman yells into his own comms. Chloe stands at the window, watching the pod coming straight towards her. Oh, Oliver, I don't think I'm gonna have time for that. She whispers, clutching her stomach, trying to shield the baby. Ollie, sweetheart, I love you, okay? she says into the comms, tears falling down her cheeks. Oliver dashes across the rooftop, tossing aside his weapons as Batman yells for him to lighten his load. He ejects from his armor as Batman tosses him a grappling gun. You'll never get here in time, Chloe breathes. Like hell I won't, he snaps, leaping off the building, firing the gun. He swings through the air, but inside the watchtower, Chloe sits down on the stairs, resigned to her death, when suddenly there's a ding and a computer voice. 3D printing complete. Sorry that took a little bit longer than I was expecting, Tess states, stepping out of the printer in a shiny new body. You just had to go with red, didn't you? Chloe asks with a smirk. Oliver lands on another building as Superman blurs past him. He screams as the building explodes. Hang on, Chloe, Superman whispers, tears streaming from his face as he flies through the air, when suddenly the air is filled with a strange red tornado heading for the ground. Oliver asks Clark if Chloe made it, and Clark can only say that something flew past him. Something may have been the nicest thing that anyone has ever called me in quite some time, Tess says with a smile, her new body shiny and red. Oliver and Lois pull Chloe in for a hug, and Superman steps up to Tess. Didn't know you had it in you, he says with a smile. Yeah, well, a little birdie gave me a pep talk earlier. She frowns though, letting them know that they've lost contact with the Monitor's network. And Black Canary lets the team know that the Manhunters are coming back as well, when suddenly the ground begins to quake as the being from the pod begins to emerge. We stand together, Superman tells the gathered heroes. We fight as one, Batman agrees. Now and forever. Wonder Woman nods, and in the destruction of the city, Lex Luthor stumbles to his feet, looking up at the monitors that stand before him. For once in this miserable second life of mine, I have no ace up my sleeve. No angle to exploit other than embracing your beloved oblivion before entropy takes hold. He tells them, but a garbage truck comes tearing from the side street, smashing through 3 monitors and killing them. The truck careens, twisting and landing on its side. Well, I stand corrected, Lex whispers as he tears open the truck doors, revealing a grinning Otis. Don't worry none about me, Mr. Luthor. Wearing my seatbelt, he tells his boss, flashing him a thumbs up. Lex calls his assistant a buffoon, pulling him free. But as a blast shoots out, striking Otis in the back, it leaves a smoking hole. Lex runs over to the struggling remains of a manhunter and he screams in rage, stomping on the robot, destroying it. And then he falls to his knees over the body of Otis. Meanwhile, across the city, Batman is knocked away by the Omega Monitor, but he quickly struggles to his feet. This is way above our pay grade, Bats, Nightwing tells him. Ugly over there isn't wearing clown makeup, and last time I checked, you can't crack concrete with your pinky finger. Not yet, I can't, Batman hisses, getting to his feet, but Superman agrees, catching the creature's fist, asking Batman and Nightwing to get Chloe and Lois free of the battle as the two crouch behind an overturned truck. What about Queen? Batman asks. They stand a better chance with you than me, Oliver tells him, firing 2 arrows at the monster, and they have no effect. You're better, stronger, and faster than I am, so shut the hell up and do what you're told for a change. Sir, yes, sir. Batman smiles, saluting the hero. The duo drop Lois and Chloe off at a safe place, and then they turn back to the war zone. The 2 lanterns, John Stewart and Aya, are attacking the Omega Monitor, but the creature tears through their constructs. Wonder Woman leaps in, slashing with her sword, and Jean flies in, trying to use his psychic powers to alter the Omega Monitor's mind, but he's also thrown back. I am from beyond all universes. Your Martian mind cannot handle all that I have seen, the creature growls. Okay. He's a tough one, Oliver notes, and Wonder Woman nods, getting back on the comms. Take off your kid gloves, Superman, she orders him, and he nods, rocketing downwards, pummeling into the creature. The creature falls, its armor finally cracked. Tell your masters in orbit that the fight is over. No more blood needs to be shed, Superman tells him, when suddenly cables snake out of the Monitor's armor, wrapping around the Man of Steel. As with the rest of your designate, you lead your peers into battle, so your fall will do more to break them than I ever could. Omega snarls. Omega to all deconstructors, fire on my position. The ships converge overhead, blasting down into the Omega and the Man of Steel, deconstructing bleed energy, hitting Superman hard. It won't be rebooted, he gasps, and elsewhere Lex kneels over Otis, the assistant coughing, smiling up at his boss. I try to help you get out of here, but I can't see, Mr. Luthor. Maybe there's a first aid station in one of these buildings, Lex begins, but Otis suddenly sits up, grabbing onto Lex with the last of his strength. Whether they win or die today, you don't have to be the bad guy, Otis gasps before falling, dead. Lex lowers the man to the ground gently. How do you know? He whispers. The lanterns hold the Manhunters at bay as Batman tries to repair the uplink to the monitor network. Watchtower to Batman. Superman is down. His comms chirp. Damn it, Clark. The Dark Knight whispers. Nightwing dodges another blast, which fires at Aya. She screams for her new friend before falling back to Batman. How long? She asks. Too long. He confirms that he looks at her, for a moment questioning whether he should have taken her on as a partner. Oh, come on. Butch and Sundance could have landed on pillows. She tells him as the Manhunters get close. They didn't land on pillows. Barbara smiles, turning back to her partner, telling him, you need to have hope. And that's when a blue ring swirls around her, colliding with her stomach, knocking her away. Barbara Gordon of Earth, you have the ability to instill great hope, the ring chimes. The blue light fades and Batman now looks at Blue Lantern Nightwing. Duh. She smiles as the blue construct bats begin to attack the Manhunters. Superman looks around and he glows blue with the light of the bleed. He sees his life flashing before his eyes, traveling backwards. He's standing on the Daily Planet. He's saving Lois. He's seeing his father in the Fortress of Solitude. He's at the dinner table with his parents in Smallville, and he's a little baby, taken into the arms of Martha Kent after having been dropped from the sky. He flexes, anger coursing through his body. His name is Clark Kent. He will not be rebooted. And the heroes turn as they see the Man of Steel within the blast of blue energy. My name is Clark Kent, and you will not take my reality from me, he yells, with the energy feedback blasting the ships overhead. All will be well, Batman whispers as he watches the ships explode. Told ya! Blue Lantern Nightwing smirks, and Batman taps his comms, letting Tess know that she's back online with the network. Oliver and Diana help Superman to his feet, and the Man of Steel orders Tess to turn the ships on anything that isn't a Collector and Reconstitution ship. We'll work out the fate of the monitors themselves once we've set the world right. On the mothership, the captain looks down at the world below him. It would seem the universe itself is aligned against our mission after all of these eons. And so, for the first time since creation, let us close our eyes. She orders her crew. Below, the heroes look up into the sky as it's filled with the blue light of the bleed. Later, the Earth shines brightly in the vastness of space, and at the Fortress of Solitude, Superman stands before the captain of the Monitor ship, who has been placed into restraints. With nothing left to monitor, he asks her, if your actions to eradicate every universe in the multiverse had been successful, what would you have done? What would you have seen with nothing left to observe? The captain bows her head before looking up at the heroes that gather before her. Peace. Finally, after an eternity, we would have known peace. The heroes look down at her, noting that the universe is a messy place. But that wave of entropy has just dissipated. Do not deny me Oblivion's embrace beside my fellow monitors, the woman asks. But Jean shakes his head, offering the woman that most of the Kal-Els within the multiverse do not kill. But those that do, she begins before Superman interrupts her. Ain't here right now, and we're not killing any of you. He tells her that they will be deconstructed and placed into stasis until they can be dealt with. You were there for a moment in Oblivion. What did you see? The captain asks. Was there silence? Clark reaches out, touching the crystal before him. No. The captain is deconstructed and placed into the crystal, and with their work done, the heroes return to their lives to live. Batman lands in the cave, finding Nightwing waiting for him. I expected you would have already shipped out, he frowns at her, but Barbara smiles, letting him know that she still has a few moments. I always expected your moxie to kill me one day, he tells her, pulling off his cowl. But it saved me, just like it did when you showed up in that ridiculous costume at the policeman's ball, he says, reaching out his hand to shake hers. Before she can, though, he pulls her into a tight hug, surprising her. Even the Batman needs help from time to time. Never forget that. Barbara smiles, winking at him before she flies away. Alfred appears behind him, letting him know that someone is waiting for him upstairs. So Barbara floats into space where Aya and Chip are waiting for her, and the three of them streak off into the vastness of space. Bruce watches the 3 points of light disappear, and then he heads into the room. He said that Mistress Gordon recommended the two of you get to know each other. Alfred tells him, and Bruce smiles, extending his hand. You must be Richard. The young man smiles. Grayson, Mr. Wayne, but my friends call me Dick. 3 weeks pass, and Lois stands in the park listening to Lex give a speech on commemorating the battle that took place, and the heroes stand behind him as the crowd gathers. It pains me to say this, but we would have been lost without them. Superman steps forward, shaking the billionaire's hand. Coming from you, Lex, that means a lot. The Man of Steel steps up to the microphone, giving his speech to the world. And in Washington, Martha Kent is watching her son on TV and sheds a tear, because she's so proud of him. In their headquarters, Superboy puts his arm around McGann and the rest of the Titans as they gather around to listen. In the 31st century, the Legion of Superheroes watched the recording of this historic event. We will always rise to the challenge when anyone or anything threatens your safety, well-being, or way of life. A unified League of Heroes will never fail to champion truth, justice, and freedom for all people. And we're here to stay. Superman finishes as the curtain is pulled away, revealing the statue of the heroes who fought in the battle. Weeks pass again, and Tess is sitting at dinner with Emil Hamilton. The scientist asks if she can feel herself pinching her own skin, or if she can taste the food that they're eating. And at the end of the night, he walks her to an alleyway where the two of them share a tender kiss. She flies away in a blur of wind, landing at Star Labs, where she plugs in her new robot body to a machine, transferring herself. And on the Watchtower moon base, Tess emerges as a hologram. Watchtower is officially back online, she announces. Back over on Earth, Oliver and Chloe stand in the headquarters of the DEO, talking with Steve and Diana. Have you given any thought to the offer that we made? The Amazon asks. And Oliver smiles, pulling Chloe close. Chloe Sullivan Queen and her mister will join you in your quest to protect everything all the time. Chloe tells them with a smile, and Director Trevor shakes Oliver's hand, pulling 2 badges out of his pocket. So you want to meet your ragtag group of misfits? Trevor asks. The door slides open and Diana motions to the group standing within. Allow me to introduce you to your students, Instructor Queen. Oliver steps into the room, reading the roster. Dropouts, convicts, and he tosses the tablet aside. So my little band of outsiders. Lesson number 1, he says, pulling one of his bows out of the weapons locker. This is a bow, and this is an arrow. He smiles at them. Over in the city, Lex looks out of the window of his car before his attention is drawn back to his new assistant. He sits listening to the woman drone on about his day's schedule. And once they finally arrive, she opens the door for him. Is everything all right, sir? She asks. Lex stares at her for a moment. On paper, yes. You're practically perfect in every way, he tells her. I very much appreciate this opportunity, and I know I have loads to learn. Thank you, Lex. Don't call me that, he snaps, making her look at the ground. I'm sorry, sir. Not that either. Just refer to me as Mr. Luther, okay? She nods. Yes, of course, Mr. Luther. The anger falls away from Lex. Now slump your shoulders, he tells her. Of course, Mr. Luther. Is this better? She asks, slouching. No, I don't think it ever will be. He sighs, looking up at the White House. The billionaire crosses the Rose Garden, where he finds the president hard at work. The man shakes his hand, congratulating him on his efforts during the crisis. And he asks that Lex act as a go-between with the government and the new Justice League. You have been considering a career in politics, right? He asks, and Lex smiles at the man. You know, Mr. President, I've always thought that I was meant for greatness. Meanwhile, over in their apartment, Lois and Clark are packing when suddenly their Watchtower comms begin to buzz. Clark swoops up his love and they dash out of the room. But suddenly, they fly back in. Don't whoosh back! Time is of the essence, Lois yells. But Clark smiles, pulling the little green bow out of one of their boxes. I know, but I don't want to show up empty-handed. He smiles. Over at the hospital, Oliver looks at his child as he holds Chloe close. This is a beautiful baby, Chloe remarks, with a head as big as her father's ego. The nurse pokes her head in, letting the family know that they're cleared to leave. So Oliver parks Chloe in a wheelchair, and he pushes her towards the exit. The family is all smiles, and Chloe begins to worry about the world that they're going to raise their kid in. But Oliver just kisses her on the head. I wish we had a family here to share this with, she tells him. And as the doors slide open, Chloe looks on surprised and happy. Sweetheart, haven't you been paying attention? Oliver tells her, motioning to all of their friends that are standing in the waiting room. We've got all the family you'll ever need, right here. For a moment, Clark seems hesitant to hold the child, but Lois pushes it onto him. Come on, Clark. You've moved a planet. I think you can hold the baby, she tells him. But Clark shakes his head. It isn't that, Lois. We've lost so many people over the years. It's nice to finally have someone new join the family, he tells them. As much as I love referring to him as a preposition, what's his name? Lois asks. Chloe looks at Clark, the man that she grew up with. His name is Jonathan, she tells him, and Clark looks down at the child that was named after his own father, the tear in his eye. Later, Lois and Clark break through the clouds, and they float into the night air. Clark pulls her close and asks if they're high enough. You ready to let me go? She asks with a smile, and he pulls her in tight, and the two share a kiss. Never, he whispers. Easy, Romeo. She smiles, pushing off of him and dropping through the night sky with a parachute on her back. This girl's gotta fly. Clark watches the woman that he loves descends towards the earth until her parachute opens and she begins to float. With suddenly his comms chirp. Watchtower to Boy Scout. Go for Boy Scout. Tess comes through telling him that a tsunami is headed for India. So Superman nods, telling her that he's heading to intercept. Roger that, Boy Scout, she confirms, and Superman smiles as he begins to cruise through the atmosphere. I think it's time that we changed my call sign, he tells her, breaking through the sound barrier, because this looks like a job for Superman. And that concludes Smallville. Now, I do want to make a slight correction. I know earlier in one of our previews, I said that Hal Jordan was going to become the Blue Lantern eventually. That's because at the time I hadn't read this issue, and on the cover of it, which showed a Blue Lantern, I thought it was Hal Jordan. But no, Barbara Gordon. So cool, right? Other than that, guys, thank you so much for those of you who have watched every episode of this on every Sunday. Seriously. It's been incredible doing this every week. I really have been enjoying the storyline. And for each of you guys who've been watching this, it's been just so much fun doing a continual storyline for like 4 to 6 months, somewhere in there. The storyline overall, there are 2, just in case you're curious, and you can go buy them yourself. There is a book called Smallville Titans, which is technically considered a spin-off, but it was lumped into one of these volumes. But you can easily go to Comicsology or find the solo book, Smallville Titans. If you're wondering where the Titans, Smallville, again, all of them came from, it's a story about Jay Garrick teaching these new Titans to become heroes. There's also a very small plot in Volume 8 that we skipped over involving a virus that was breaking out while Superman and Lois were traveling through the multiverse. That plot, unfortunately, actually didn't resolve. They just kind of started ignoring it and moved towards the war. So we just kind of chopped it out just to make things cleaner and easier for you guys. Overall, thank you so much for joining us. I know some people only stick around for one particular series, and there's going to be a few of you who stop watching the channel. But if you want to consider it, we do other Superman stuff here. We do Batman, we do Spider-Man, we do Deadpool. We do a lot of stuff here, and I'd love to have you stick around with us. Consider subscribing to the channel if you are interested in those other videos. You can also give this video a like. And if you do really like our content and want early access, please consider going to our Patreon, patreon.com/Comicstorian. Either way, guys, regardless of what you do or if I never get to see you again, thank you so much for joining us for this storyline. I really hope you enjoyed Season 11, because I know I did, and I know it took us forever to get to it, but thank you. That's pretty much all I got. And I'll see you, hopefully, next time, right here at Comicstorian.